I was devastated when Uncle Jack passed away. I remember the idyllic summers my family would spend at his sprawling mansion, my favorite memory being his library. It was 3 stories tall with countless wooden shelves stocked with endless books. One day I read the quiet musings of a humble accountant, and the next day I'd read about the troubled life of a drug-addled rock star. I would become so immersed in the lives of these characters that they felt real. After all, that's what a good book does to you, right? Mother and I went to visit his estate to pay our respects to Aunt Lizzie. She proceeded to bore Aunt Lizzie with her dull voice, so I left to peruse the library for old time's sake. One book in particular caught my eye. Allison. The protagonist's name was Allison, just like me. She was blonde with a crooked nose and green eyes, just like me. She was born in Ohio, but raised in Michigan, just like me. She wished her father was still alive to protect her from her mother, just like me. The similarities were hard to ignore. With trembling hands, I flipped to the last pages of the book. Allison was horrified with her shocking discovery. Do these books in her uncle's library chronicle the actual events of real people? Does this book hold her fate? Filled with curiosity, she skipped to the end to catch a glimpse of her demise, but was interrupted by her scheming mother. Allison, Mother called sternly, time to leave. I slammed the book shut. The beat of impending doom grew louder. Only 1 page left. I don't know why I looked up, but when I did, I saw him there. He stood against my window. His forehead rested against the glass, and his eyes were still and light as he smiled a lipstick-red, cartoonish grin. And he just stood there in the window. My wife was sleeping upstairs, my son was in his crib, and I couldn't move as I froze and watched him looking past me through the glass. Oh, please, no. His smile never moved, but he put a hand up and slid it down the glass, watching me with matted hair and yellow skin and face through the window. I couldn't do anything. I just stayed there, frozen, feet still in the bushes I was pruning, looking into my home. He stood against my window. My daughter, Katie, is 6 and has an overactive imagination. She regularly crawls into my bed at night with my husband and I, telling us about the monsters in her room. One, she said, has a black body that looks almost blob-like, with yellow skin on his face and big black eyes. It pins her to her bed and touches her roughly with black hands, sometimes choking her until she can't breathe. The other one, with red, scaly skin and yellow eyes, is really nice. It lives beneath her bed and sits with her after the black monster visits. She says it makes her feel safe again. This morning I went to do laundry and found blood on Katie's pajamas. I rushed to her room to talk to her, but instead vomited once I flicked on the light. My husband's body lay in pieces, pools of blood taking up most of the floor. Katie curled up in her bed, her hands over her ears and her eyes squeezed shut. Next to her was the red-skinned monster she spoke about. It stared at me with sad eyes, and too shocked to do anything else, I stared back. He started to move towards me, and all I could do was stand still, even when it gently placed a claw hand on my shoulder, and then crawled underneath the bed. I looked down at my husband, noticing his black dressing gown that was torn to shreds, and the rest of the pieces of the mask he was wearing, small yellow pieces. When my wife was alive, we always joked about that we'd find a way to contact each other if there really was another side. She'd be the wind in the chimes on a still day, or I'd be the hidden note in the desk drawer that reads, "I'm okay. I love you." She passed away a few weeks ago after a long bout with cancer. It shattered my heart into pieces, but a small part of me was glad she finally found peace, and that her days of suffering were over. Yesterday, I finally found the courage to scatter her ashes into the Atlantic Ocean, as I was sure she would have wanted. My hands shook as I pulled the last handful of my wife's remains from the beautiful wooden box the funeral home had given me. I never should have looked inside that empty box. Crudely carved inside the bottom of the box in shaky but deliberate scrawl. "Why did you burn me? Feel everything forever." My blood turned to ice as I helplessly watched every speck of my wife float apart into the forever of that endless, cold, deep